Meet Paul Harmon. He'd like to offer you a unique cycling tour of scenic Mayo. Twice the fun of a regular cycling tour and only half the pedalling.
Really kind of cycling for softies.
Wouldn't life be sweet if every great business idea led to a great business? In this series, 8 entrepreneurs from around the country will attempt to grow their hopes and dreams into business reality, guided every step of the way by 2 experts in rural enterprise. Teagasc business specialist Paul McCarthy and innovation writer with the Irish Farmers Journal, Peter Young. Even with their help, there is no guarantee of success. All these 2 mentors can do is point the way. Londoner Paul Harmon, his wife Marie and their kids, Ross and Katie, live in Westport. Last year, after 25 years in sales of one type or another, Paul found himself jobless for the first time in his life.
For the last 5 years I was involved in construction, building roads, selling tile macadam, and it was great during the boom years, and then that come to a grinding halt. And as I said then in November, they're made redundant, and that was that. I've worked in the Middle East, in Saudi and Dubai, which is where I met Marie. She was nursing out in the Middle East there. And we lived out there for 2 years, had a ball, and then come back to Ireland. Been here ever since. Obviously made redundant, and the traditional thing is sending CVs out everywhere and going up to Dublin and shirt and tie and whatever, and going to the job agencies. And at 45 it's fairly daunting as far as that, but I got a job offer in Dublin, a job offer in the UK, which really meant I was back to travelling, leaving on Sunday night, Monday morning, and getting back late Thursday night.
We really don't want him gone, you know. I mean, if it came to it and he had to go to work in Dublin, so be it, we'd manage that as well. But I think if this works, it would just be the icing on the cake.
Paul's new business idea is to host cycle tours of the Westport area. Cycle tours with a difference. Paul's bikes will have state-of-the-art electric motors. As well as hiring and selling them, he'll retain a small fleet of bikes for use on his tours.
The bikes themselves have a small battery, and it gives you approximately 50 miles of assistance. You still pedal the bikes and still get some activity and exercise, but if it comes to a hill or a headwind, you can really press a button and up you go. So what I'm doing is putting together a tour of baking bread, coming down to oyster farm, cooking up the oysters, enjoying the bread, some wine tasting.
He loves the outdoors, he'd be doing something that he loves, and he'd be able to stay at home with us.
At this moment in time I have some of my redundancy money left, and I'm putting that redundancy money up really and looking for funding to help me with that. And there are various sources of funding around for tourism. In total, to make it work how I'd like it to work, I'd need about 30,000 euros. I've possibly got about half of that, so I'm looking to get half of that elsewhere.
Peter and Paul have come to Westport to see what it is that drives Mayo's newest tour operator.
This will help you up the hill.
The booster.
It's just as simple as that.
So how much do the bikes cost?
They vary from, say, 1,800 to up to 2,200. So they're not cheap by any means.
And how much have you invested so far?
Around 10,000 euros so far. So I've basically bought the bikes to demonstrate, one of each model, and just preparing things and getting ready.
You've applied for leader funding. What's the situation there?
It's at the stage where I've filled out all the forms and got help with that, submitted that, so it's basically a case of playing half. I provide half and the funding will be the other half.
And how much money are you talking about?
Really 30,000 to start up, so I'm putting in 15 and hoping for 15 from alternative funding.
How are you going to target your customers?
Going around the hotels with flyers and things like this, the website, approaching societies, the bird watching, photography, painting, those kind of things that are going on is what I'm doing at the moment, and getting good feedback from them. But as I said, the idea people seem to have accepted, but how I put that into practice and logistics is really what I need some help with.
Have you set any targets for the business?
I set targets on sales of bikes. I hope to do 80 bikes. As far as sales are concerned, on the tours, I'm really looking at those targets now.
So how much would you need from the business in a year?
I haven't even thought about that. And the costings and the funding and how to make the money is the thing I really need help with.
Paul, what strengths do you bring to the business?
Hopefully my own strength would be the sales side of it, and actually selling the idea, bringing on partners, talking to people, negotiating.
And weaknesses?
My weaknesses would probably be paperwork, and anyone that's probably worked with me would probably agree with that. Costings, figures, those kind of things I'd need help with.
Paul, what can we do for you?
I mentioned before my weaknesses as far as budgeting, costing and those kind of things. I really need someone to say, this is what really you need to do. I need to know how to make some money out of it, some order and structure to the business, and basically a plan and a time frame of when that should be done and how that should be done.
Paul will need more than enthusiasm to compete in an already busy market. The mentors think he should be more focused on selling bikes, which could be a real money spinner, and Paul's plan to buy just 12 bikes for touring doesn't bode well for turnover. For now though, the focus is on quality, not quantity.
I'm back in Westport. I've got Paul to put on a sample tour. We've got some people from the tourist industry and also some tourists. It's going to be interesting to see how he gets on. What I'm really looking for is I want to see if he's well organised and also if he can provide a fantastic customer experience.
The first stop is Westport House, so we'll go off to Westport House and have a look round there in your own time. After that we'll come back, we're going to be joined by a photographer, do a bit of photography, then we'll be on to a mussel farm, collect some lovely fresh mussels, and up to the restaurant there and cook them up with perhaps some garlic or chilli, whatever you like there, glass of wine, some fresh bread. But take your own time today, and the idea is just to relax and just have fun and enjoy what Mayo has to offer.
Everywhere you go, always take the weather with you.
Paul's vision of the business hinges on small groups and personal service. A typical one-day tour like this, including a picnic, a photography class, lunch and entry to Westport House, will cost €75 a head.
If you think at one time all this was the land of Westport House, you know?
That's some kind of lotion on you have.
There's some water there for the tea, hot water there for the tea.
Brilliant.
Oh, carrot cake.
Some lovely carrot cake.
Oh, gorgeous, we like that.
Now we'll stop here, we're going to meet Eamon, the photographer.
So we go and take a picture of Paul. Now, if you were to try doing it at +1 and just see how much more detail you might get into his face. See? Okay? So what we're doing is, even with these little cameras, we can control exposure.
Rather than just supplying lunch, Paul wants to get the guests involved in making it. If the tide was out now, they'd be picking their own mussels on Clew Bay Strand.
The mussels we're going to have for lunch are very local. They come from the bay just here. If the tide was out, we'd probably be able to go out and pick some. But we'll go around and see Sean now, grab the mussels, take them up to Miles there, and we'll cook them up and have them for lunch.
Okay guys, welcome to Tavern Cookery Lesson. We're doing mussels today. Probably the most easiest, freshest and natural fast food in the world to do. Hot dish is on. This is wild garlic, just picked today. You chop that very finely for me. Nice big handful of mussels. Good dash of white wine. Just toss them like that for a second. Just throw it in roughly. Yeah, it's beautiful. Just toss them like that. Again over. And just leave them steam open naturally. We've some fresh brown bread out of the oven. We're going to cut up the brown bread, have a nice glass of wine, and we're going to have a little crock of the mussels.
The garlic. Cheers again.
Cheers. Great day, fellas.
Cheers, thanks.
I've never been on an electric bike before, but it's fantastic when you get up a hill and you get this help helping you out. I suppose it's different than the normal cycle that I would normally do, in that you're at a different pace. You're in company with people, and it's a new experience. It was actually a new experience for me of the place that I live in.
You feel like you're having a good day out from start to finish, yes. Mary? And
it's very varied,
yes.
Which makes it very interesting.
There were a couple of things that could be improved on, which is always going to be the case with these tours, and it's always going to be important to get that customer feedback. There were people at different levels there, some going slower and some going faster, so maybe a little itinerary and a map of the route and where the stops were going to be, so if people went ahead they knew where to stop. So I suppose my fear would be, from a price point of view, is like the price point at €75 is really good, but when you pay for the photographer and you pay for everyone's meal out of here, pay for your time as the guide and also your time for organising the whole trip. And not only that, but you had 5 electric bikes on that trip. That's 10 grand's worth of equipment. You know, that I have concerns over the viability, just to make sure that you're making money.
Yeah, good point. Really doing cycling tours over...
Coming next, the uphill struggle begins.
You weren't here really hungry for business, you know, hungry to do deals.
Paul Harmon has a unique business idea: electric escapes, cycling tours of Mayo on battery-powered bikes. He has no problem pitching the idea, but his mentors know he has a way to go before launching this business for real. 2 weeks ago, they asked Paul to research the market. Today, Paul McCarthy is back in Westport to see what he's learned.
I suppose the first one that I asked you for was to look at the needs of the different markets. How did that go for you?
It went well. I mean, I talked to local people, local hotels, Fortune Islands, and researched their surveys that have been done on the area of different markets, and they seem to fall into 3 types of groups: families, middle-aged groups, and then there were kind of the adventure and hen and stag night kind of groups. So there were 3 distinct kind of markets that were coming, or people that were coming into the Westport.
Right. So I see here you've written down like that the families are looking for value for money, education, time balance, flexibility, safety, variety to avoid boredom, structure but hassle-free, food, drinks, mixture of time with kids and family. That's good work you've done there. So moving on from that then, I suppose to look at the types of packages that those groups might enjoy.
Yeah.
I see here you've identified like one for the families, a pirate tour. Do you want to talk me through that?
Yeah, I'm associating it with obviously the Gronya Whale in the area and the pirate theme, and looking at a ticket into Westport House, hiring the bikes, the treasure map, treasure, a cutlass and an eye patch for the kids, and get that whole kind of family kind of feel going.
Other packages that could really work market-wise are like the corporate, people in the offices, team building kind of end of it. Could really enjoy one of your packages like that we had on our tour some weeks back.
It's a market I haven't even thought of, the corporate market.
Yeah, and the dating singles market.
Yeah.
To theme up basically the electric bikes with different packages. And just I suppose to break down the likes of that tour we were on that day, basically that package was costing say €75, right? And there was 5 people out that day. Yeah. So that comes to €375.
The cost was around €50 for the photographer, and around €12 per head for the lunch there.
So that's €60. So at that's 375 less 110, which is €265. So that would have been for all your time and for the organisation and to pay for the bikes.
Yeah. I need to look at a break-even point as far as what's viable and what's not. It's hard to almost go back to college, as it were, and look at the paperwork and structure it, and the homework certainly helped me with that. I'm getting better at it. I'm not great. I prefer to do the fun things, like going out and researching the routes and enjoying the people and the interaction that way. And the paperwork I'd like to push to the back. But he's made me see how important it is.
I think as time is moving on, he's becoming more of a businessman and less of more kind of loose, airy-fairy ideas man. And that's good.
Today, Peter wants Paul to see exactly how a small-scale tour operation should be run.
Paul is trying to turn his idea of electric bike tours into a business. To help him, I brought him along and got him to join a vagabond tour and meet the owner, Rob Rankin. Rob took the concept of safari and adapted it for Ireland. He's turned vagabond tours into a very successful business, and I'm confident that Paul will learn a lot from him.
Vagabond's 4-wheel drive Land Rovers take clients off the beaten track, offering a range of activities tailored to the needs of each individual tour group.
Because it's actually pointing kind of north. Rob, Paul's about to launch his business and he's faced a number of different challenges, from the financing to the marketing. How did you get on when you were starting yours?
Well, I think when you first start off, the key thing is to keep your costs to an absolute minimum. You have to be able to do everything yourself, basically. When you're doing your costing, make sure you do it on a seasonal basis. Don't do your cost for a 12-month season, because you're not going to have one. So you have to be realistic with your costing, and likewise with your pricing. We've built up a network of agencies around the world who will take bookings for us. And that's very important. It will take a while to get off the ground. You know, I think that their average for a tour company is about 5 years before you really start feeling established. So you just have to work slowly towards that, build your business relationships. I would definitely suggest building a good relationship with Fulton Island and Tourism Ireland. They've been very helpful to us.
How and when did you know it was the right time to expand the business?
Well, in terms of the tours, the customer feedback fairly early on was that longer tour, they'd like to have longer tours. You know, as I said, it could be their only visit here to Ireland, and so they want to stay as long as possible. Also, it's a question of maximising on each customer. You know, if they did a 5-day tour but they were interested in a 7-day tour, then we should have done a 7-day tour. So now we offer anything up to 11 days.
Rob said his wife and family were very supportive, the same as my wife and family, they're very supportive as well. But if I can say to them that today I've seen someone who has done it and this is the result, then there's light at the end of the tunnel.
It's mid-May and Paul McCarthy is keen to see whether former salesman Paul Harmon can adapt his old skills to pitching a new business.
I've managed to get Paul out of Westport for the day. I've organised for him to come here to the Burlington Hotel, where there is a major international travel fair. There could be up to 250 tour operators here, many of whom could bring customers to Paul. But it's a speed dating format, so it's fast, intense, and Paul is going to have to be really on top of his game. Cycling tours, but on electric cycles.
Yes.
It's the case of
Speed dating at the Mehel Tourism Fair gives attendees just 5 minutes at a time to pitch their ideas.
Castles and I've gone your well over in the west end.
So where are you based?
In Westport.
And so, on to the next pitch. Proof, as if it were needed, that selling is basically a numbers game.
We're over in Westport, over in Mayo. The kind of age group that we deal with, this is going to be more interested than using pedal power. Hi, how are you? Really doing cycling tours over the west of Ireland in Westport there. Okay. But with a bit of a difference in that the bikes are electric bikes. And I keep the groups between 8 and 10 people, so you get a more intimate experience. And I'm involving local people as well, so local cheese producers, jam, food. You don't need to be a keen cyclist to enjoy the experience of the tour. So
it's very unusual. We had a meeting there just last month where we were saying, should we get into activity type holidays? And this is the ideal activity holiday.
It's cycling tours in the west of Ireland, and along the route we really show them, hopefully things haven't seen kind of before along the way. We also introduce them to local people, perhaps producing local food, local crafts.
And have a fully guided minimum number of people?
It's 8 to 10 people, it really, so you can really enjoy the scenery and the activity along the way. Can I take the picture? Sorry, I'll send one on. I'll take this, is that okay?
You leaving me one of these?
I haven't got anything to leave there. I can send you some there if that's... Oh, sorry. I've got to go.
I think it's a great idea, and it's different, because I don't know of anybody else in Ireland doing it.
More leaflets or something to illustrate, because when you're talking to somebody, you're only got the few minutes, but then you need something to take away, and that's very important.
I'd have to say I'm disappointed. Okay. In a few things. I suppose in terms of literature, and you did a good bit of prep in terms of having the literature ready, and I thought it would have been quite easy to have just a copy of a one-pager. I'm not saying to overload them with literature, because that day is gone, but just to have, people were requesting it, have you got a kind of a profile of your company, just something a little bit more than the business card. There was a real interest in your product out there and a real hunger for new products. But overall my impression, and it concerns me a little, is that you weren't here really hungry for business, hungry to do deals, and making the most of, a really brilliant opportunity.
You're right, the response was great. Yes, we like this, let's have that. And I probably should have gone for it a bit harder. Yeah, I'll take that point on board.
You're in business now. You are up and running. You're ready to take orders. So be strong on that and be ready. Rather than saying, in a year's time I'll be ready to talk to you.
You don't need to jump in and take the opportunity. And there were opportunities there to say, okay, what about taking 10 of these? And something I really should have done, something I've done every day probably in sales for the last 30 years or more, but it's yeah.
I want to ride my bicycle.
The weather with you, Peter.
At this stage, Peter decides it's high time Paul confronted his single biggest fear about running the business: money.
Paul, when we met you first, you admitted that one of your big weaknesses was financials. You didn't like the figures. And now we've set you a number of tasks to make sure you get to grips with them. And I suppose to hammer home the point, I brought along my own wheel.
Right.
I made it like a bicycle wheel, because I know you're seeing a lot of them.
I was going to say I've seen enough of them the last few months.
But you have the lost side, and that's probably was where you were when we started. You just lost your job. You know, I mean, you had an idea and you're bringing forward. But now, I mean, you've moved into the amber, you've moved into break even. You know, you got your leader funding, you've got bikes, and you're planning for launch. But really, this is where you need to be.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, you need to be driving your business, you need to be in profit. You know, and to do that, you have to look at your financials. And we did give you a task of doing budgets. I mean, how'd you get on with that?
I got on okay, and the wheel is great because that's how I see things visually that way. I find figures boring, as it were, so I see things in images. And I did the budgets here with the accountant, one when I started, and that's developed and gone on from there.
You know, it's good to get help, but it's dangerous as well because you have to understand them yourself. It's your business. You have to know the figures inside out. And I mean, just looking through them, this is the first one you sent us. It showed a loss of €38, which is typical enough for small businesses, you know, it's not. But I mean, suddenly now the latest budget shows you making a profit of 34,000. I mean, what's changed?
A couple of things have changed. Instead of just doing day tours, I'm looking at 2, 3, 4 day tours. And now doing the tours, I've something to negotiate with, so I've been able to get better prices with hotels, suppliers, and things like that.
And I think it is because of your focus that you realise now, okay, you can get money in, but you have to keep your costs down to make sure you have money at the end of it. I mean, you've done some good budgets here, but I mean, the one thing I was just looking at in 2012 is a turnover of 624,000. I mean, is that realistic?
It's ambitious. It's probably aiming for the stars and hitting the trees, as it were. I need something to really go for. There's lots of probables there.
There's no harm aiming for the stars, but I mean, you have to be realistic in your budgets because if you have that turnover figure and plan to spend, you're going to be back in loss. It's where you don't want to be. I mean, the other point is you've just done a budget from May to October.
I'm looking at winter tours as well to complement that, but the sales side is really kind of kicking in. It's year long, and really Christmas time people are buying presents, and the January time, the January sales, etc. People looking for bargains for bikes, might do special offers, things like that. That will really help kind of complement the tourism side.
I'm glad you're focusing more on the sales of the bikes, and you've actually done budgets for the number of bikes you sell. Because, I mean, as you said, I mean, that'll bring money in throughout the year. But most importantly, in November and December, when the tours are going to be quiet, that strategy, you can build up a very good model. But I mean, it comes down to you have to understand your figures. Your budgets have to be realistic. Finally, then just keep looking at them. You know, don't put them away at the beginning of the year. You know, I mean, they're your business. So you have to keep looking at it, keep monitoring and seeing exactly where you are and are you going to hit that profit target.
The big day has come. Paul has teamed up with his suppliers in Westport Town Square, combining a mini trade fair with the official launch of Electric Escapes.
It's a great feeling to actually have something built from scratch and now launching. It's not a finishing line though, this is really the start line.
And we're here with Paul Harmon from Electric Escapes. The main reason we're broadcasting today, Paul, is because you're here to launch your new venture, electric bicycles. And everybody in Westport should come along and check out one of these